For years, what unseen words were exchanged? What dark truths did Clint perceive in an actor's mockery? Why did an aspiring star's name, once so full of promise, inexplicably vanish from the casting sheets of Warner Brothers, as if erased by an unseen hand? No one ever truly knew, because Clint Eastwood didn't explain. He didn't rant or rage or unleash a storm of tweets. He didn't offer a single soundbite to the hungry tabloids. He simply vanished people, quietly, coldly, permanently. And this is the hidden truth. The truth behind the carefully constructed curtain of Hollywood's glamour. The untold stories. The secret battles that rage unseen, shaping not just careers, but the very souls of legends. And now, at the venerable age of 94, the iron-willed legend himself is finally letting his guard down. In a few rare, unscripted moments of searing honesty, a chilling pattern has begun to emerge. 5 names, 5 celebrities, 5 souls Clint Eastwood never truly forgave. The ones who dared to insult him, who flagrantly disrespected his vision, or who simply made the fatal, soul-crushing mistake of believing he had forgotten. They didn't just clash with a filmmaker, they crossed a man who lived by an ancient, unbreakable code. A man who never, ever backed down. Picture this if you dare to truly see beyond the glittering facade. Beverly Hills, 1993. The Four Seasons Hotel, an opulent cage of polished marble and hushed whispers, is teeming with the titans of Hollywood. Producers in suits that cost more than most people's homes, Oscar winners with the weight of gold upon their shoulders, sipping whiskey that burns with the taste of triumph. And there, somewhere near the grand piano, a sentinel of silence stands Clint Eastwood. Stone-faced, eyes, those infamous ice-blue windows to an unyielding soul, narrowed to dangerous slits, arms crossed defiantly across his chest. Across the room, a rising young actor, a whirlwind of youthful exuberance, holds court. Laughter spills from his lips, bright and brittle. He name-drops with the casual ease of a king distributing favors, weaving a story that culminates in a cheap, almost grotesque impersonation of the old cowboy director. A ripple of nervous chuckles spreads through the room, a sycophantic tide of amusement. Everyone laughs. Everyone, that is, except Clint. He doesn't utter a single solitary word. His gaze remains fixed, unblinking, unwavering. He simply finishes his drink, the ice clinking a final, chilling cadence in the sudden stillness of his immediate presence. He offers a barely perceptible nod to the bartender, a silent acknowledgement of a transaction complete, and then he walks out the door. Without a backward glance, without a single fiery confrontation, no theatrical scene, no explosive outburst, just silence. A silence so profound, so absolute, it felt like the very air had frozen, every molecule screaming with unspoken meaning. It was the kind of silence that's final, the kind that echoes in the marrow of your bones. Prepare yourself, for this list will fundamentally alter your perception of Hollywood's intricate web of relationships. These are not mere trivial disputes or passing disagreements, forgotten with the turning of the tide. Instead, they were deeply painful confrontations, some unfolding directly on set, others meticulously orchestrated behind the scenes. Each encounter, subtle or overt, irreversibly impacted his illustrious career and haunted him long after the cameras stopped rolling. This is the journey into the heart of silent vengeance, the unflinching gaze into the dark side of the truth. The drama you crave, the plot twists you never saw coming, the raw, unexpected reality behind the bright lights and polished smiles. Michael Moore, The Documentary Showdown. First on that list, a documentary firestarter, a provocateur who, in Clint's eyes, attempted to forge his name into the annals of history by mocking the very principles Clint held sacred. And Clint? He didn't laugh, he didn't respond with a public retort, he simply ensured it would never happen again. The name is Michael Moore. The genesis of this Cold War, this chilling animosity, began with a joke. Or at least Michael Moore, in his self-assured audacity, believed it was a joke. It was 2005. The National Board of Review Awards event, a bastion of cinematic self-congratulation. Clint Eastwood, a colossus among men, strode onto the stage. The room buzzed with the gentle murmur of polite applause, the scent of expensive champagne, and the fragile hope of collective camaraderie. And then he dropped a line, a single, perfectly weighted sentence that cleaved through the convivial atmosphere, silencing the laughter like a sudden, brutal gust of wind. "Michael Moore and I actually have a lot in common," Clint stated, his voice a low, gravelly rumble that filled the expansive ballroom. "We both appreciate documentaries, but if he ever shows up at my front door with a camera, I'll kill him." A nervous ripple, a hesitant chuckle attempted to break the sudden, oppressive silence. A few gasps punctuated the lingering tension, but Clint, he didn't flinch. No easy smile, no reassuring wink to soften the blow, no convenient exit for the stunned audience. The tension, thick and suffocating, hung in the air like gunpowder after a shot. This wasn't a stand-up comedy routine. This was a warning, a stark, unblinking declaration. Clint, the silent gunslinger, had just drawn a verbal line in the sand, a line Moore, with all his bravado, never dared to cross again. The true roots of this cold animosity stretched far deeper than that single offhand comment. Moore had been making seismic waves across the cultural landscape with his searing documentary Fahrenheit 9/11, a blistering, no-holds-barred takedown of the Bush administration, a raw, unvarnished indictment of American military actions in the tumultuous aftermath of 9/11. It garnered awards, it devoured headlines, it ignited a cultural firestorm, and it absolutely unequivocally infuriated Clint Eastwood. To Eastwood, a man forged in the crucible of a bygone era, who had grown up revering the quiet heroism of World War II veterans, who honored the unspoken sacrifices of silent service, Moore's work felt like a cheap shot, a cynical, self-promotional exploitation of national tragedy masquerading as truth. He didn't perceive it as valid criticism. No, to Clint, it was a profound betrayal, a stab at the very heart of American identity, the kind of betrayal that hits dangerously close to the bone. By then, Clint was no longer just an actor. He was a director, a master storyteller, a visionary crafting narratives that explored the intricate tapestry of American identity, the profound burden of sacrifice, the universal ache of human pain. His films $1 Million Baby, which he had just completed, and Flags of Our Fathers, which was on the precipice of release, were not crafted for fleeting headlines, but for enduring history. Michael Moore, in Clint's unyielding eyes, wasn't documenting truth, he was ruthlessly exploiting it. The two men, once sharing a tangential appreciation for the documentary form, never collaborated again. They never even stood in the same frame. To this day, if you were to whisper Moore's name in Clint's presence, he would likely raise an eyebrow, a solitary, almost imperceptible grunt escaping his lips, and then, with the practiced ease of a man who understands the power of the unspoken, he would change the subject. Because Eastwood, the silent gunslinger, doesn't engage in public feuds, he believes in quiet erasure, a permanent chilling void. Because YouTube will prioritize interactive videos, please comment OK if you find this video interesting. Thank you. Gene Hackman, the rival he couldn't direct. On screen, they were electric, a raw, visceral chemistry that crackled with unspoken tension, undeniable power. Their performances, a dance of light and shadow, were a masterclass in cinematic synergy, but off-screen they barely spoke. In 1992, Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman joined forces for Unforgiven, a film that didn't just redefine the Western genre, it swept the Oscars, cementing its place in the pantheon of cinematic greatness. From the outside, it appeared to be a flawless collaboration, a seamless fusion of two giants at the peak of their formidable powers. But behind the stoic, Oscar-winning performances, a slow-burning storm raged. Clint, the meticulous craftsman, was known for running a tight ship, a respectful set. He valued control above all else, cherished the quiet focus of creation, and demanded absolute trust from his collaborators. Hackman, on the other hand, was unpredictable, fiery, famously combative. While Eastwood, in his wisdom, afforded his actors immense freedom, he demanded discipline, unwavering commitment to the craft. Hackman, in his intense, almost chaotic brilliance, brought heat, too much of it. From the very first week of filming, whispers like dry leaves skittering across a desolate plain began to circulate. Hackman, a force of nature in his own right, didn't take notes easily. He would interrupt Clint's instructions, challenging the very essence of his direction. He would openly question blocking, pushing for line rewrites, reshaping the script with a raw, almost arrogant confidence. It wasn't rebellion, not in the traditional sense, it was pride. A clash of two unyielding wills, each convinced of their own infallible artistic vision. One assistant, a silent observer of the simmering tension, recalled a moment etched forever in their memory during a pivotal scene. Hackman paused mid-take, the camera still rolling, the moment hanging precariously in the dusty air. He turned slowly to Clint, his eyes blazing with an unyielding conviction, and declared, "That line doesn't work. I'm not saying it." Clint, the master of the unspoken, didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stared. His gaze, a silent, all-encompassing force, bore into Hackman. Then, with a voice so soft, it was almost a whisper, yet infused with a deadly, unshakable finality, he replied, "You will." It wasn't yelling, it was final, absolute. A declaration from a man who knew precisely the power of his own will. Tension, thick and oppressive, hung over the remainder of the shoot like a desert storm cloud pregnant with unspoken thunder. They never argued in front of the crew, not openly, not vocally, but their silences, their loaded, suffocating silences, said more than words ever could. Mutual respect, perhaps. A grudging acknowledgement of each other's titanic talent, but mutual affection, not a trace. After Unforgiven, both men walked away with gleaming gold statues, a testament to their shared triumph. But that, dear viewer, was the last time they ever walked onto the same set. Clint, the architect of his own artistic kingdom, never invited Hackman back, never cited him as a favored collaborator, and when asked about the film in the years that followed, he would speak of Morgan Freeman, of Richard Harris, but rarely, if ever, would the name Gene Hackman pass his lips. Industry insiders, those who truly understood the intricate dance of Hollywood power, believed the respect, the professional acknowledgement was real, but the relationship itself, unsalvageable, too much ego, too much friction, an insurmountable clash of wills. And in Clint's world, a world built on unwavering conviction and silent authority, that meant only one thing, one and done, a final, irrevocable cut. Hackman, not long after, would famously retire from acting. Eastwood, ever the enduring force, continued on, carefully curating the inner circle he brought into his sacred creative space. Because for Clint Eastwood, chemistry, that intangible spark that ignites magic on screen, isn't about fleeting fame, it's about trust. Absolute, unyielding trust. And once that trust is shattered, once that invisible bond is broken, even by a fellow legend, it's over, permanently. Two icons, one unforgettable film, and a wall of silence that never ever cracked. Because when Clint Eastwood closes a door, it stays shut. Spike Lee, A Battle Over History. Clint Eastwood, a man of few words, a master of stoic silence, made a rare exception in 2008, and the resulting clash was anything but pretty. When his ambitious double feature, Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima, hit theaters, critics hailed it as a monumental achievement. One film, seen through the American perspective, the other through the Japanese. A raw, grim, unflinchingly honest portrayal of war's brutal reality. But to Spike Lee, a visionary with a profound commitment to overlooked narratives, something crucial was missing, a gaping, unforgivable void. Lee publicly, vociferously accused Clint of erasing Black Marines from the harrowing story of Iwo Jima. He called out the conspicuous absence of representation in Flags of Our Fathers, his voice resonating with an indignant fury. Many African Americans gave their lives, Spike declared, his words a powerful echo across the cultural divide. You can't ignore that. Clint, the stoic, the unflappable, was livid. He didn't respond with carefully worded nuance or the measured diplomacy of a press release. Instead, he fired back with a declaration that sounded less like a filmmaker's rebuttal and more like a pronouncement from the Old West. A chilling, unequivocal threat. A guy like him should shut his face. It wasn't merely defensive, it was explosive. Headlines like ravenous vultures swooped down to feast on the burgeoning feud. Spike, a provocateur of the highest order, didn't flinch. "I'm not going to shut up," he retorted, his voice dripping with defiance. "He sounds like an angry old man." For days, the bitter feud hijacked entertainment news, a relentless, all-consuming saga that dominated every conversation. Two filmmaking titans, one the traditionalist cowboy steeped in the rugged lore of Hollywood's past, the other the modern provocateur, unafraid to expose uncomfortable truths. They squared off in a brutal war of words, a public spectacle that laid bare Hollywood's deepest, most painful fault lines. And while countless mediators attempted to bridge the chasm, to interpret the fallout, to find common ground, Clint never clarified his scorching remarks. That profound, unyielding silence spoke volumes. To Eastwood, the narrative of Iwo Jima was about a very specific group of soldiers, their individual stories etched into the brutal landscape of war. He wasn't interested in checking boxes, in fulfilling quotas, in conforming to external pressures. He was interested purely and simply in telling his story, the way he saw it. And he was not under any circumstances going to allow anyone to dictate his art. But Spike Lee, with his unwavering commitment to historical accuracy and social justice, saw it profoundly differently. He believed, with every fiber of his being, that Clint bore a monumental responsibility, a sacred duty to tell the full, unvarnished story of history, especially when countless lives were lost in the chilling embrace of silence. It wasn't just about a film. It was about the immeasurable weight of representation, the echoes of unheard voices. And for two men as proud, as principled, as utterly stubborn as Eastwood and Lee, compromise was never, ever an option. They haven't spoken since. Their paths, once precariously close, have diverged irrevocably. They don't attend the same events. They don't appear on the same panels. And neither, at least publicly, has acknowledged the other's enduring legacy. The silence, once a mere pause, has become a permanent chasm, a testament to a rivalry so profound, it severed all ties. But if you, dear viewer, believe that Clint Eastwood only clashed with fellow directors, think again. For his next feud, a silent storm brewing beneath the surface transpired on his very own movie set, with one of the most famous actors in the entire world, an actor who in his youthful brilliance dared to test Clint's legendary patience. Love this video? Show some love with a like and a subscribe. Hate it? A like would still be awesome, and your feedback in the comments will help me improve. Leonardo DiCaprio, method versus gunslinger. They were two titans, two icons forged in the distinct fires of different eras. Leonardo DiCaprio, the intense, emotionally charged method actor, a true artisan of the craft who delved deep into the psychological labyrinth of his characters, seeking every nuance, every tremor of the human spirit. And Clint Eastwood, the grizzled, no-nonsense filmmaker, a man who valued speed above all else, who cherished silence, who demanded unyielding control. When Eastwood, in a bold, unexpected move, cast DiCaprio in his 2011 film J. Edgar, Hollywood buzzed with the thrilling hum of anticipation. It was hailed as the ultimate collision, old school versus new school, a cinematic experiment poised to redefine the boundaries of collaboration. But behind the carefully erected facade of the set, that collision rapidly devolved into a quiet, simmering storm. From the very first day of production, the friction was palpable, a live current crackling in the air. Clint was renowned for his austere, one-take directing style, minimal rehearsal, limited setup, shoot and move on. It was efficient, it was instinctual. It was a testament to his innate understanding of the camera, of performance, and it was the polar opposite of how DiCaprio operated. Leo, the meticulous artist, liked to explore. He craved multiple takes, each a chance to uncover a new layer, a deeper truth. He asked questions, probing the depths of character, seeking profound emotional insights. While DiCaprio delved into the subtle intricacies, searching for hidden dimensions, Clint, ever the pragmatist, was already calling cut, move on. Crew members, those silent witnesses to Hollywood's hidden dramas, whispered about the unspoken tension. One insider, his voice hushed with the weight of observed conflict, famously remarked that it was like watching a racehorse try to run in cowboy boots. There were no screaming matches, no theatrical walkouts, no overt displays of animosity, but the energy on set was tense, a suffocating cloak of unspoken conflict. Two master craftsmen, two wildly divergent approaches locked in a silent, relentless struggle over how a story should be told. DiCaprio, the consummate professional, did his best to adapt, to bend his artistic will to the unyielding demands of the gunslinger. But Clint didn't budge. The film was made. It was released. And then silence. No second collaboration, no shared triumphs on future projects, no warm, effusive praise in interviews, no shout-outs during awards season. Clint, a director known for his loyalty, who frequently reuses actors he admires, talents like Morgan Freeman and Bradley Cooper, never called Leo again. Some in the industry murmured that it was simply a case of creative incompatibility, a clash of artistic visions too vast to bridge. Others, with a knowing glint in their eyes, believed Clint perceived DiCaprio as high maintenance, too theatrical, perhaps even egotistical. Whatever the hidden truth, their professional paths, once aligned, split irrevocably, like a cracked lens. And Eastwood, ever the man of unwavering conviction, never looked back. The door, once closed, remained shut permanently. Seth Rogan, the sniper insult that Clint never forgot. Some actors, when they incur the wrath of a Hollywood titan, make quiet enemies, enemies who lurk in the shadows, waiting for their moment. Seth Rogan, in his unbridled, audacious irreverence, made his enemy loud. In 2014, Clint Eastwood released American Sniper, a biographical war drama, a searing portrait of Navy SEAL Chris Kyle. The film, a raw nerve exposed to the public gaze, polarized critics. Yet it shattered box office records, a colossal cultural phenomenon that stirred a profound firestorm of debate. For countless millions, it was a profound tribute to military service, a respectful nod to the quiet heroes who sacrifice everything. But for Rogan, the irreverent comedian, it was something else entirely. Just days after its release, as the film's controversial tendrils snaked across the nation, Rogan took to Twitter. He unleashed a jab that resonated with the force of a nuclear detonation, leaving jaws on the floor, minds reeling in disbelief. American Sniper kind of reminds me of the movie that's showing in the third act of Inglourious Basterds, Rogan tweeted, his words dripping with a sarcastic, almost contemptuous disdain. The one where the Nazi sniper is killing allies. He didn't mention Clint by name, he didn't have to. The implication, a toxic poison seeping into the public consciousness, was nuclear, comparing Clint Eastwood's film, a heartfelt ode to American courage, to Nazi propaganda. And though Rogan, in a later desperate attempt at damage control, insisted it was just a joke, a feeble defense against the public outcry, the damage had already been done. The words, once uttered, could never be unsaid. Clint Eastwood, ever the silent gunslinger, didn't tweet back. He didn't issue a fiery statement to the press. He didn't utter a single indignant word. Because Clint doesn't engage in social media battles. He doesn't descend into the messy public fray of online feuds. He does silence, ice-cold silence. But behind those closed doors, in the hushed sanctums of Hollywood power, insiders whispered tales of Clint's volcanic fury. He was livid, not just because of the stinging insult, but because it was public, a deliberate, calculated act of public humiliation. It wasn't a debate, an exchange of ideas. It was a hit and run. To Clint, it wasn't just profoundly disrespectful, it was cowardly. A cheap shot from a man hiding behind a keyboard aiming to diminish a legend. And while Rogan, in his belated attempts, would later backpedal, desperately trying to clarify that he wasn't actually calling American Sniper Nazi propaganda, the apology never reached Clint's ears, or more importantly, his heart. Eastwood, a man whose memory is as long as a desert highway, never mentioned Rogan again, never worked with him, and, reportedly, made it chillingly clear to his closest collaborators, if Rogan's name ever dared to appear on a casting list, it had better disappear faster than a tumbleweed in a dust storm, because if there is one thing, one sacred boundary, that Clint Eastwood does not tolerate, it is being disrespected by someone who believes everything in life is just a joke. The laughter may fade, but the silent scorn of a legend endures. Was Clint Eastwood right to erase his enemies in silence? Or did he go too far? Yes or no, and tell us why in the comments. The silence of the gunslinger. Clint Eastwood never needed to shout to make a statement. He didn't throw tantrums, those childish outbursts that so often define lesser figures in Hollywood. He didn't air his dirty laundry in public interviews, dissecting his grievances for the hungry masses. No, he simply watched. He waited. He observed. And when someone, anyone, dared to cross that invisible line, that sacred boundary he had drawn around himself and his art, he didn't fire back with verbal salvos, he cut them out. Quietly, permanently, In Hollywood, a glittering, often ruthless realm where reputations are so often meticulously built upon the shifting sands of charm, on the fragile illusion of collaboration, Clint Eastwood forged his legacy on something else entirely, on unwavering conviction, on an inner strength that few could ever hope to comprehend. These 5 celebrities, these titans of their own respective crafts, learned the hard way. They learned that working with Eastwood wasn't just another job, it was a test, a crucible of respect, of discipline, of knowing precisely when to keep your ego, that ravenous beast, firmly in check. Some, as we have seen, failed it spectacularly. The raw, candid truths behind these challenging co-star relationships offer a glimpse into a darker, rarely discussed reality for countless actresses and actors in Hollywood's golden glare. For much of her career, like so many women of her generation, Sally Field endured a constant, suffocating pressure to remain silent about the mistreatment she faced. Speaking out risked everything: roles, reputation, even her fundamental sense of safety. The industry's unspoken code was simple: be grateful, don't complain. And the emotional bruises from on-set cruelty or egotistical co-stars often lingered long after the film wrapped. The fear of being forgotten, of losing that beautiful memory of youth and success, is a pain point for so many, just as it was for these stars. These difficult chapters shaped not only Clint's legendary career, but the man he became: resilient, wise, and finally, unafraid to let the truth resonate in the silence he has so powerfully mastered. His willingness to finally reveal these most painful encounters is more than just a confession. It's a profound reminder that even the brightest stars face darkness behind the scenes. It's a beacon for anyone who's ever felt invisible or diminished by power and fame. Clint's journey, marked by both scars and triumphs, is a testament to the resilience required to endure and finally to speak out. So now the question, dear audience, is yours. Do you think Clint, the silent gunslinger, was right to stay silent, to employ his chilling method of quiet erasure? Or do you believe some of these deeply rooted grudges went too far, etching permanent scars on the tapestry of Hollywood history? Drop your thoughts, your deepest reflections, in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you yearn for more untold truths, more bold confessions from the golden age of Hollywood, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for Iconic Inside and turn on notifications. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the ones we see on screen. They're the truths finally spoken when the cameras stop rolling and the legends, at long last, reveal their deepest pains. Alec Baldwin. On the set of Rust in 2021, Alec Baldwin's long-standing arrogance met a harsh, unimaginable reality. During filming, a prop gun in his hand discharged a live round, unleashing a catastrophic tragedy that instantly claimed the life of cinematographer Helena Hutchins and gravely injured the director. This devastating incident sent shockwaves of horror and disbelief throughout Hollywood and beyond. For years, Alec Baldwin had navigated Hollywood with a distinctive swagger that often slipped into real-life arrogance. His on-screen flair for drama was frequently mirrored by his off-screen persona. He became infamous for a leaked voicemail where he berated his own daughter as a thoughtless little pig. He was kicked off a flight for audaciously refusing to turn off his phone during a game, and in a brazen display of entitlement, he even informed police during a traffic stop, "They don't even know who I am," when they failed to recognize him. Each of these public outbursts served only to reinforce his image as someone who genuinely believed rules were for other people. In his world, apparently, triple word scores outranked FAA regulations, fostering a sense of unquestionable superiority. In the wake of the Rust tragedy, Baldwin gave a tearful television interview, yet controversially maintained, "I didn't pull the trigger." This statement implied the gun somehow fired on its own, a stance that many felt was a blatant deflection of blame. For the first time, the actor, who had seemingly operated above all consequences, found real, formidable repercussions looming. He was charged with involuntary manslaughter, a rare and grave accusation for a Hollywood star. While prosecutors later dropped those charges, the irreparable damage to Baldwin's once formidable reputation had already been irrevocably done. The incident became a stark, public reminder that even the most seemingly entitled stars are not immune to the crushing weight of real-world consequences. The public scrutiny and legal battles forced him into a new, uncomfortable reality, far removed from his former untouchable status. Kevin Spacey. The golden facade surrounding Kevin Spacey, an actor widely considered one of Hollywood's most brilliant and seemingly unstoppable talents, began to crumble catastrophically in late 2017. The implosion started when actor Anthony Rapp bravely came forward, accusing Spacey of making a sexual advance toward him in 1986, when Rapp was shockingly just 14 years old. This single, devastating accusation was the first crack in the dam, unleashing a torrent of untold stories. Kevin Spacey had been an undisputed titan of the silver screen. With 2 coveted Oscars to his name, he commanded respect and admiration, leading groundbreaking projects like Netflix's first prestige series, House of Cards*. His chillingly convincing portrayal of the Machiavellian Frank Underwood was so potent that even President Obama famously joked, "No spoilers," about the show's dark twists. Off-screen, Spacey projected an image of smooth charm and razor-sharp wit, renowned for his clever impressions and once even introduced as everyone's favorite president. Spacey's initial response to Rapp's accusation was a disastrous attempt at damage control. He issued an apology that controversially revealed he was gay, a move that was widely condemned as deflecting from the accusation itself. This ill-fated gambit backfired spectacularly. Instead of quelling the storm, it flung open the floodgates, leading to a tsunami of allegations. Dozens more individuals from both Hollywood and London emerged with their own harrowing accounts, detailing accusations that spanned several decades. Spacey's once golden reputation crumbled overnight. The repercussions were swift and unforgiving. Netflix, the very platform he had helped legitimize, unceremoniously fired him from House of Cards. Sony went to the extraordinary lengths of cutting him entirely from the completed film All the Money in the World, reshooting his scenes with Christopher Plummer in a desperate bid to salvage the movie. In a breathtaking descent, Kevin Spacey transformed from an icon to a pariah virtually overnight. His perceived untouchability dissolved, leaving behind a scorched earth of scandal and a career in irrevocable ruin. Which country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. There are even more shocking celebrity downfalls coming up, so stay tuned. And on. Ezra Miller. The illusion of invincibility surrounding Ezra Miller, a rapidly ascending star poised to conquer Hollywood, shattered definitively by April 2020. A disturbing video surfaced, showing Miller apparently choking a woman outside a bar in Iceland. This shocking footage instantly revealed a dark, unsettling edge to the actor who had once been celebrated as a hero. Ezra Miller had experienced a meteoric rise, transitioning seamlessly from indie film successes to the vast landscapes of the wizarding world, and ultimately landing the highly coveted role of DC's Flash. For a period, it truly felt as though nothing could touch them. Miller seemed to operate with a reckless, almost superhuman speed, as if their escalating fame came with its own force field, protecting them from any repercussions. They were heralded as a new kind of star, embodying a dynamic, unpredictable energy that seemed to promise a long and unblemished reign. However, the Icelandic incident was merely the tip of a rapidly growing iceberg. Throughout 2022, Miller's missteps piled up with alarming frequency. These included a bizarre anti-Klan Instagram video, a volatile karaoke night meltdown in Hawaii where Miller yelled obscenities, grabbed a mic from a singer, and lunged at a darts player. Days later, police alleged Miller threw a chair at a woman during a traffic stop, causing injury. Neighbors even sought protective orders, accusing Miller of threats and theft. Despite these escalating headlines and the mounting evidence of disturbing behavior, Miller initially pressed on, offering no public explanation. By summer, the saga deepened considerably. A tribal court filing saw native parents accusing Miller of cult-like grooming of their then 12-year-old child. In Vermont, police further alleged Miller broke into a neighbor's house and stole liquor. Faced with an overwhelming cascade of charges and accusations, Miller finally issued a public apology and entered treatment for complex mental health issues. The blinding light of fame had exposed a deeply troubled individual, proving that even the fastest rising stars are vulnerable to a swift and devastating fall. Danny Masterson. The shattering accusations that would ultimately lead to Danny Masterson's stunning downfall first surfaced in 2017, when the LAPD confirmed it was actively investigating claims from 3 women who alleged Masterson had sexually assaulted them in the early 2000s. What made these accusations even more chilling was that these accusers were also Scientologists, who claimed the church had pressured them to remain silent. Danny Masterson had long been a familiar face, or known for his devil-may-care grin. He rose to prominence as the couch-crashing Stephen Hyde on That 70s Show, and later became a ranch-owning co-star on Netflix. Having grown up in a Scientology family, Masterson himself reportedly joked that he had never been given a hard time about his beliefs because he genuinely felt he possessed a powerful safety net of high-powered friends and church ties. His involvement in co-producing The Ranch with his friend Ashton Kutcher seemed to further seal his Hollywood credentials, cementing his belief in his untouchable status. This confidence in his safety net clearly illustrated his firm belief in being shielded from consequences due to his status and connections. Despite Masterson and his team vehemently calling the claims outrageous and consistently denying everything, the walls quickly began to close in. Netflix, initially hesitant, with an exec reportedly telling an accuser that the bosses did not think the allegations were credible, a statement that ironically led to that exec's own firing, soon cut ties with Masterson within days, writing him off the ranch. His longtime agent also dropped him after 2 decades. In June 2020, Masterson was charged with 3 counts of forcible sexual assault. He pleaded not guilty and proceeded to trial. By late 2022, prosecutors argued he had drugged and forced himself onto the women at his Hollywood home between 2001 and 2003, using his prominence in the church to evade consequences for years. His lawyers maintained the encounters were consensual and Masterson himself did not testify. In May 2023, a jury delivered its damning verdict, convicting him on 2 counts of forcible sexual assault. Masterson was subsequently sentenced to an agonizing 30 years to life in prison. His case, prominently highlighted as a key takeaway from the video, showcased a complete collapse from the belief of untouchability to the most severe legal punishment. Charlie Sheen. The once unassailable image of James Franco, lauded as a creative force in Hollywood, began to visibly crack between 2014 and 2018. The first public shattering occurred when a teenager leaked Instagram chats revealing the then 35-year-old Franco, asking a 17-year-old to meet him. This disturbing revelation was soon followed by an even more damning expose in 2018. Franco's early career had been nothing short of superhuman. He seamlessly leaped from cult TV stardom, playing Daniel Desario on Freaks and Geeks, to starring in both major blockbusters and acclaimed independent films. His impressive resume included co-starring roles in hits like Pineapple Express and Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and he even garnered an Oscar nomination for the survival drama 127 Hours. He collected 2 Golden Globes for his portrayals of James Dean on TV and for The Disaster Artist. 2018 felt like a triumphant victory lap, with the LA Times hailing his Golden Globe win as proof of an untraditional career, labeling him a bankable leading man, Ivy League academic and eccentric auteur. Franco literally taught film at NYU and UCLA, acting as if collecting degrees made him more invincible. For a significant period, Franco truly seemed utterly untouchable, his diverse talents and omnipresence making him a Hollywood enigma. UCLA even noted he had worked on 17 films plus a Broadway interpretation of Mice and Men and numerous art exhibitions. However, the true plot twist was far from glamorous. In 2018, the LA Times unveiled a devastating report. 5 women, 4 of whom were his former acting students, accused Franco of inappropriate or exploitative behavior as their mentor. The juxtaposition was surreal. He had just worn a Time's Up pin at the Golden Globes, and now headlines were about misconduct, not comedy. By 2021, the legal repercussions forced him to quietly settle a class action suit for $2.2 million. Eventually, James Franco publicly admitted that he had behaved inappropriately with students. Will Smith. The world watched in stunned silence as Will Smith's carefully cultivated image of an affable, clean-cut hero shattered violently in a single shocking live moment at the 2022 Oscars. In an act that echoed through Hollywood and beyond, Smith stormed the stage and delivered a resounding slap across comedian Chris Rock's face, all in response to a joke aimed at his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. This unfathomable outburst occurred just minutes before Smith was poised to accept the Best Actor Oscar for his powerful portrayal in King Richard *. That monumental triumph, however, was eclipsed instantly by what quickly became known as the slap heard around the world. Before this cataclysmic event, Will Smith had maintained an almost mythical reputation. He was the ultimate rapper-turned-movie star, riding an unending wave of success that seemed destined to carry him forever. His career was a masterclass in charisma and likability, making him appear truly invincible. He embodied the clean-cut, aspirational hero, charming audiences globally, and accumulating an untouchable aura that few could rival. This was the man who could do no wrong, whose smile could disarm any criticism, and whose fame appeared to be a fortress against failure. The fallout from that seismic slap was immediate and ruthless. Smith swiftly issued a public apology, acknowledging his behavior as unacceptable and inexcusable. But the damage was already done. Several of his highly anticipated film projects were abruptly put on hold or even outright cancelled. The Academy, the very institution that had just awarded him its highest honor, responded by banning him from attending the Oscars for a decade. Perhaps most painful for a star who thrived on public adoration, countless fans who had once revered him turned into bitter foes overnight. The man who had once seemed utterly invincible was now facing the very real stinging consequences of his actions. Rachel Zgler. Rachel Zegler's seemingly unstoppable rise was suddenly engulfed in a storm of controversy following Disney's casting announcement for Snow White. Critics immediately fixated on the fairy tale's iconic line, "Skin as white as snow," and launched vitriolic attacks on Zegler's Latina roots. This online uproar was merely the prelude to a far more profound challenge to her burgeoning untouchability. Zgler had rocketed to stardom with breathtaking speed, landing the pivotal role of Maria in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Her stunning performance earned her a Golden Globe at the incredibly young age of 20, making her the first Colombian actress to win that award. She was hailed as a breakout star, and her future seemed limitless, her career trajectory nothing short of invincible. She represented a new, diverse generation of Hollywood talent, seemingly destined to transcend any traditional barriers. However, Zegler's defiant responses to the initial Snow White backlash, though understandable, foreshadowed further complications. She snapped back at her critics, declaring, "Yes, I am Snow White. No, I am not bleaching my skin for the role," and contemptuously dubbed the haters losers obsessed with maintaining the bloodline purity of a cartoon princess. She framed the remake as a modern tale where Snow White would not be saved by the prince but will become the leader she knows she can be. Then came the explosive Twitter storm in August 2024. Zgler shared the Snow White trailer, audaciously tacking on, "And always remember Free Palestine." This highly politicized statement caused immediate panic at Disney. Producer Mark Platt reportedly flew to New York to ask her to take it down, and his son Jonah griped she was dragging her personal politics into the film's promo. Zgler, however, stood firm. She then tweeted a slur aimed at the 47, a reference to the 47 states regions that supported Trump in the 2024 election, forcing Disney to check her posts. The film's growing controversy and politicization certainly contributed to its poor box office performance. Snow White opened with just $43 million on a $270 million budget. It was not a fairy tale ending for a star who once seemed untouchable. Do you think celebrities deserve a second chance after one devastating mistake? Yes or no? Vote below. Josie Smlet. On January 29, 2019, Josie Smlet, an actor who had achieved a groundbreaking status in Hollywood, told Chicago police a harrowing tale. He had been attacked by racists with homophobic slurs and a noose. This shocking report ignited a firestorm of support on social media, with NFL insiders even inviting him onto a Super Bowl TV segment. However, investigators quickly began to smell trouble. Smollett had rocketed to fame as the breakout star of Empire. His portrayal of Jamal Lyon was revolutionary, making him a trailblazer as a gay black lead on a top TV drama. He reportedly earned a substantial $100,000 an episode. Riding high on this wave of success and public admiration, Smollett began to act like he was above the rules, basking in a perceived aura of untouchability. The unsettling truth that soon emerged was that Smollett had actually scripted the whole thing. He meticulously rehearsed lines, picked camera angles, and paid two buddies $3,500 to attack him in the dark. Police uncovered damning evidence, including the check, phone audio, and security video, leading to Smollett being charged with filing a false report. The repercussions were swift and severe. Empire's producers quietly wiped his character from upcoming episodes, and the city of Chicago sued Smollett for the plus $130,000 it cost to investigate his elaborate stunt. His public image cratered, leaving colleagues and fans feeling profoundly betrayed. After initial legal recusal, a special prosecutor reinstated 16 felony counts. In late 2021, a jury convicted Smollett on 5 counts of felony disorderly conduct, false police report. He was sentenced to 150 days in county jail, serving only a few, plus fines and restitution, with the judge harshly calling him arrogant and selfish and narcissistic. Amber Heard. The rocket ride of Amber Heard's career in Hollywood came to a brutal public halt when her ex-husband Johnny Depp filed a $50 million defamation lawsuit against her in 2019. Depp squarely blamed Heard's Washington Post op-ed about domestic abuse for decimating his own career. This lawsuit ignited a media firestorm that would ultimately culminate in a televised trial that captivated and polarized the world. Amber Heard had enjoyed a rapid and impressive ascent in Hollywood. She initially broke in with notable independent hits and cult comedies before securing a highly coveted role as Princess Mira in Aquaman, a DCU blockbuster that grossed over $1 billion. By 2018, she was not only a L'Oréal Paris ambassador, but also a high-profile voice for causes, publicly advocating against domestic abuse and even penning a Washington Post op-ed on the subject. With a resume that boasted Justice League, Magic Mike XXL, and her increasingly prominent role as an activist ally, Amber must have genuinely felt utterly untouchable. Her future seemed boundless, her public image unblemished and powerful. The 2022 televised defamation trial between Heard and Depp became a global spectacle. With celebrities lined up and the internet exploded in a frenzy of commentary and fervent debate. Heard's emotional testimony on the stand, where she sobbed, was met with cynicism from Depp fans who dismissed it as fake crying, with some even declaring her the worst actor ever for her performance. The jury's verdict was a decisive, one-sided win for Depp. They found that Heard's claims were made with actual malice and awarded Depp a staggering $15 million, while Heard received only $2 million. The fallout for Heard was nothing short of brutal. Warner Bros. Quietly pared down her Aquaman 2 role, and a petition demanding her removal from the film garnered over 4.5 million signatures. She testified that she had even lost a beauty deal after Depp's team publicly labeled her story a hoax. PR experts grimly described the trial as a career murder-suicide for both stars. Heard publicly lamented the verdict as heartbreaking and a setback for women. But many outsiders increasingly viewed her as a cunning, lying, manipulative woman. The immense public pressure proved too much to handle, leading her to eventually move to Spain and even change her name to Martha Jane Canary. Shia LaBeouf. By 2020, Shia LaBeouf found himself facing a harrowing lawsuit from his ex-partner, FKA Twigs, who accused him of alleged abuse. While LaBeouf initially denied the details, he later admitted to feeling ashamed and sorry for how he treated her. This grave accusation was the culmination of years of increasingly erratic and self-destructive behavior, which he often seemed to treat as a form of live, chaotic performance art. Shia LaBeouf had experienced a meteoric ascent from his beginnings as a Disney child star on Even Stevens to an Emmy winner, quickly transitioning into blockbusters like Transformers. He was captured grinning on magazine covers as if nothing could touch him. By his early 20s, he truly believed he was Hollywood's rebel prince, utterly convinced that his newfound fame granted him absolute immunity from consequences. His career seemed boundless, his reputation unblemished, leaving him with a deep-seated conviction of his untouchable status. However, the headlines soon shifted dramatically, no longer celebrating his next film, but detailing his increasingly wild antics. LaBeouf bizarrely treated his real-life breakdowns like live art, transforming every drunken outburst or apology tour into a dramatic flourish. In 2013, he controversially lifted a comic story for a short film and then transformed his apology tour into a peculiar performance art spectacle complete with paper bags and candles, making contrition into a spectacle. His legal troubles escalated. He was arrested in New York during a 2014 Christmas protest and again in Savannah in 2017 for screaming at police officers. His public experiments, such as wearing a paper bag over his head that read, "I'm not famous anymore," or inviting the public to repeat the phrase, "He will not divide us," often felt more chaotic than creative. The lawsuit from FKA Twigs finally served as a brutal wake-up jolt. It forced him to take stock of his life. He subsequently went to rehab, achieved sobriety, and candidly admitted that he had been selfish and reckless. James Franco, Katherine Higgel. Katherine Higgel's once unblemished Hollywood momentum began to fracture when she started speaking her mind a little too freely. The first major misstep came in a 2008 Vanity Fair interview where she famously called her own hit romantic comedy, Knocked Up, a little sexist. She openly complained that the film portrayed women as uptight shrews while men were lovable goofballs. In the treacherous landscape of Hollywood, bad-mouthing your own hit isn't the wisest move. Higgel's Hollywood journey had begun with soaring promise. She became a household name as a core cast member on Grey's Anatomy, even snagging an Emmy for her performance. This success smoothly propelled her into a burgeoning film career where she soon headlined box office hits like Knocked Up and 27 Dresses, solidifying her status as a box office darling. At that point, her career seemed to be an unstoppable force, her trajectory heading only upwards. However, her candor quickly morphed into a self-inflicted wound. The same year she criticized Knocked Up, Higgel made another highly public and controversial move, withdrawing her name from Emmy consideration for Grey's Anatomy. Her blunt declaration was that she hadn't been given the material to warrant an Emmy nomination. Unsurprisingly, this blistering public slight was not met with amusement by the show's writers and creator, who were left not amused. She further compounded her problems by appearing on David Letterman's show to gripe about a grueling 17-hour workday on Grey's, denouncing it as cruel and mean. These cutting remarks were widely perceived as biting the hand that fed her. Higgel's outspokenness rapidly earned her the dreaded label of difficult within the industry. Consequently, the flow of scripts began to dry up. In a dramatic reversal of fortune, she plummeted from sought-after A-list star to near nothing. Ellen DeGeneres. The carefully constructed facade of Ellen DeGeneres, America's beloved, goofy, dancing Queen of Nice, imploded dramatically in 2020 as reports of a toxic workplace culture behind the scenes of the Ellen DeGeneres show began to surface. The shocking irony was palpable. The lady whose catchphrase was "be kind to one another" was allegedly not so kind to her own crew. Ellen DeGeneres had forged a remarkable path to stardom. Starting as a stand-up comic, she made groundbreaking history in the 1990s by courageously coming out as gay on her sitcom. While this bold move nearly derailed her burgeoning career, she resiliently bounced back. In 2003, she launched her daytime talk show, which quickly became a phenomenon, solidifying her as a ubiquitous presence in American pop culture. At her peak, Ellen was everywhere, hosting prestigious award shows, and even famously crashing Twitter with an Oscar selfie. Her public persona was so overwhelmingly positive that at her peak, Ellen felt untouchable in Hollywood. Criticizing her back then was like booing Santa Claus. This image of unassailable kindness hid a darker truth. For years, whispers and rumors swirled that Ellen's off-camera attitude starkly contrasted with her on-screen sunshine. The first public small cracks appeared when YouTuber Nikki DeYaga complained that Ellen was cold and distant off-air. Soon after, a viral Twitter thread emerged compiling a growing mountain of stories alleging Ellen was one of the meanest people in the biz. Then came the devastating bombshell reports detailing allegations of mistreatment, intimidation, and harassment by senior staff on her show. Ellen issued a public apology, even candidly admitting that being known as the Be Kind Lady is a tricky position when you're not perfect. 3 top producers were fired, and Ellen vowed to make things right. However, the damage was done. The once unquestionable Queen of Nice saw her empire crumble, leaving a lingering stain on her legacy and serving as a stark warning about the perils of maintaining a public persona that is vastly different from private reality. Love this video? Show some love with a like and a subscribe. Hate it? A like would still be awesome, and your feedback in the comments will help me improve. The hedonistic party that was Charlie Sheen's life and career spiraled spectacularly out of control in early 2011, culminating in a highly public and bizarre meltdown. This came after years of behaving as if nothing could touch him, a belief fueled by his immense success on 2.5 Men. As the star of 2.5 Men, playing the character of Charlie Harper, Sheen had reached the pinnacle of television stardom, becoming the highest-paid actor on TV, commanding an astonishing around $1.8 million per episode. Riding high on the unbridled success of the show, he famously declared himself winning, a phrase that seemed to encapsulate his real-life embrace of excess and uninhibited indulgence. Life in his world seemed to perfectly imitate art, granting him an illusion of invincibility. His sense of invincibility spiraled into a chaotic public spectacle. Sheen's public breakdown was characterized by a series of increasingly outlandish interviews. He famously boasted, "I got tiger blood, man, dying for fools, dying for amateurs," and audaciously proclaimed himself a total freaking rock star from Mars. These wild, nonsensical rants, coupled with derogatory tirades aimed at his boss, whom he dismissively called a clown, a stupid, stupid man, proved to be the final straw. The network had reached its breaking point. The once untouchable star was abruptly fired from his hit show that March, an outcome that was, ironically, not exactly a winning outcome. Sheen attempted to keep his reckless party going, even launching a new sitcom, Anger Management. However, reality, as it always does, eventually caught up. In 2015, he shocked fans worldwide by announcing he was HIV positive, a diagnosis he had received 4 years prior. He grimly admitted to having paid millions to keep his condition secret, finally forced to face the news head. These 5 stories are more than just Hollywood gossip. They're echoes from a world built on silence, power, and unspoken rules. Clint Eastwood's legacy isn't just one of Oscars and unforgettable performances, but of an iron-willed code that demanded loyalty, respect, and absolute control. His quiet erasures weren't acts of vengeance. They were warnings, whispered across decades of cinema. But if these were the only secrets Hollywood held, we might rest easy. The truth is, there's more, much more. So what other chilling grudges lie buried in the shadows of Tinseltown? Which stars have vanished, not by scandal, but by silence? If this story left you stunned, just wait. You haven't heard the half of it. Hit that like if you respect the power of silence. Subscribe to Iconic Inside and turn on notifications, because in the next episode, we're digging even deeper into the dark underbelly of Hollywood legends.